The quantum resonance chamber of the Galactic Confederation's most advanced observation platform hummed with an electric tension. Captain Zara Vexnak stood motionless, her iridescent skin shifting between shades of deep blue and pale silver, a biological tell of her rising anxiety. Holographic displays flickered with a constellation of data points, each reading more perplexing than the last. Senior Science Officer Glinter's multiple appendages danced across the interfaces, his translucent skin becoming almost transparent with concentration. "Captain," he called out, his voice a melodic vibration that carried both excitement and uncertainty, "we're detecting something completely unprecedented." The starlit viewport offered a canvas of infinite darkness, suddenly interrupted by a silhouette that defied every known principle of interstellar design. It wasn't just a ship. It was an anomaly that challenged the very foundations of galactic understanding. "Quantum signatures are impossible," Glinter muttered, his cynobiological sensors working overtime. The ship's configuration seemed to mock established scientific principles. Its hull appeared to be constructed from materials that shouldn't exist, a patchwork of geometries that seemed to shift and realign with each passing moment. Zara approached the viewing panel, her multi-lens eyes adjusting to capture every microscopic detail. The ship was roughly the size of a medium diplomatic cruiser, but its design spoke of something entirely different. Where Confederation ships were sleek and mathematically precise, this vessel looked almost organic, not in a biological sense, but in its apparent ability to adapt and respond to the cosmic environment. "Run a comprehensive spectral analysis," she commanded, her voice cutting through the mounting tension. The communication console erupted with a burst of static, not the clean, processed signals of advanced civilizations, but something raw and unfiltered. A voice began to emerge, speaking in a language that simultaneously sounded primitive and complex. "Confederation observation platform." The transmission crackled. "This is the human vessel Horizon. We are initiating first contact protocol." Glinter's appendages froze. "Human," he whispered, accessing the Confederation's vast xenological database. The term appeared only in obscure xenorchaeological records. A species marked as pre-spaceflight, technologically primitive, confined to a single solar system. Yet here they were. The ship's exterior continued to fascinate Zara. Unlike the perfectly symmetrical designs of Confederation vessels, this ship looked like it had been assembled from disparate parts. Sections seemed misaligned, yet there was an underlying logic that defied traditional engineering principles. It was as if the vessel had been constructed not by following established rules, but by solving problems in real time. "Confirm transmission origin," Zara instructed her communication specialist, a young officer named Krelomix whose tentacles were trembling with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Krelomix's fingers danced across quantum encryption filters, tracing the signal's complex path. "Confirmed, Captain. The transmission originates from the vessel. Linguistic patterns suggest an emerging technological civilization. The human ship made no aggressive moves. It simply held position, a silent challenge to everything the Galactic Confederation understood about space exploration and first contact protocols. They're waiting," Glintor observed, his scientific curiosity overriding his initial apprehension. "They've traveled across vast distances, approached a highly advanced observation platform, and now they're waiting for our response." Zara understood the profound nature of this moment. First contacts were rare. Encounters with previously unknown civilizations were even rarer, and this one felt different, like the universe was presenting them with a puzzle they were entirely unprepared to solve. "Open a standard communication channel," she commanded. "Let's see what these humans want." As the transmission prepared to connect, no one on the observation platform could shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The grand diplomatic chambers of the Galactic Confederation were a marvel of architectural brilliance. Crystalline walls shifted with holographic projections, representing millennia of peaceful negotiations and interstellar agreements, Ambassador Kreltok adjusted his ceremonial robes, each movement a carefully choreographed display of diplomatic expertise. "We will approach this with standard first contact protocol," he announced to the assembled diplomatic corps. His voice carried the weight of countless successful negotiations, a reputation built on gentle persuasion and technological superiority. The human transmission continued to puzzle Confederation analysts. Unlike typical first contact scenarios, these humans demonstrated no deference, no apparent anxiety about meeting a vastly more advanced civilization. Their communication was direct, almost confrontational, a linguistic approach that violated every established diplomatic norm. Senior diplomatic strategist Lynn Era reviewed the transmission logs. The human message was brutally simple. Territorial claims must be addressed. Negotiation is optional. Such directness was unheard of. Most emerging civilizations approached the Galactic Confederation with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They would typically spend weeks, sometimes months, in elaborate communication rituals, demonstrating their technological capabilities, expressing respect, seeking guidance. These humans did none of that. The Confederation's Sena diplomacy database contained extensive protocols for managing first contacts. There were carefully crafted approaches for pre-spaceflight civilizations, for emerging technological societies, for potential competitive species. Each scenario was meticulously planned, with contingencies mapped out to the smallest detail. But the humans seemed to have no interest in those protocols. "We'll prepare a standard pacification presentation," Kreltok declared. The term pacification in Confederation diplomacy was a nuanced concept, not a threat, but a comprehensive demonstration of technological and cultural superiority designed to guide emerging civilizations. The presentation was a masterpiece of interstellar communication. Holographic displays would show the Confederation's achievements, centuries of peaceful expansion, technological marvels that transformed entire star systems, a network of cooperation that spanned thousands of light years. It was designed to inspire awe, to create a sense of humble aspiration in less developed species. Lynn Era had her doubts. Something about the human transmission suggested they would not be impressed by a standard display. Their communication suggests a civilization that doesn't recognize traditional hierarchical structures, she noted, her translation algorithms working overtime to decode the nuanced linguistic patterns. They're not seeking approval. They're stating a position. The diplomatic team worked through the night, crafting a response that balanced demonstration of power with an appearance of openness. Standard procedure dictated a carefully measured approach. Show strength, but offer cooperation. No one noticed the subtle changes happening in the communication systems. Quantum encryption filters began to behave strangely, routing unexpected data streams. Communication pathways that had been stable for centuries started to show microscopic fluctuations. "We will make them understand," Kreltok said, his confidence absolute. No emerging civilization has ever failed to recognize the Confederation's superiority. Little did they know, the humans were already several steps ahead. The transmission from the human vessel arrived precisely at the agreed communication window, but something was different. The message wasn't just a response, it was a comprehensive data package that began to interface with Confederation communication systems in ways no one anticipated. Lynn Era watched in growing alarm as her diplomatic interface started to reshape itself, absorbing and analyzing the human transmission with unprecedented speed. It was as if the communication itself was alive, adapting, learning. "Ambassador," she called out, her voice losing its typical diplomatic composure. "I don't think they're asking for permission." The humans had arrived, and nothing would be the same again. The Galactic Confederation's battle fleet emerged from quantum translation with surgical precision. Hundreds of ships moved as a single organism, their energy signatures synchronized to create an overwhelming display of technological might. Fleet Admiral Zoran Kax watched the holographic display, confident in the absolute superiority of their strategic approach. "Neutralization sequence initiated," announced the Tactical Coordination Officer, her voice clinical and detached. The human vessel appeared almost primitive in comparison, a single ship facing an armada designed to pacify entire star systems. Its hull looked like a patchwork of materials that shouldn't work together, its energy signature erratic and unpredictable. The first salvo of Confederation weapons was a masterpiece of destructive physics. Quantum-entangled plasma streams converged on the human ship, each beam capable of dismantling planetary defenses. The tactical team expected nothing more than a momentary flash of dispersed matter. But nothing happened as they anticipated. The human ship absorbed the initial attack, its hull shimmering with an adaptive response that defied every known principle of energy management. Instead of being destroyed, it seemed to integrate the incoming energy, its outer layers changing color and configuration in real time. Lieutenant Commander Jax watched in growing disbelief. The ship wasn't just defending, it was learning. Recalibrating attack vectors, announced the Confederation's tactical system. But something was wrong. The computer's predictive algorithms began to stutter, unable to process the human ship's response. The human vessel responded with a communication burst that was part warning, part technological handshake. "Defensive measures active," came the transmission, requesting cessation of hostile actions. Admiral Zoran Kax couldn't believe what he was witnessing. No emerging civilization had ever survived a Confederation pacification sequence, let alone responded with such calm confidence. "Full spectrum analysis," he commanded, his multi-jointed fingers pressing command sequences into the tactical interface. The ship's sensors revealed something impossible. The human vessel was not just absorbing energy. It was redistributing it, creating dynamic shield harmonics that adapted faster than the Confederation's most advanced targeting systems could track. Each weapon's blast was not just neutralized, but transformed into a defensive capability. Tactical Officer Renla's translation algorithms worked overtime. The human ship's communication patterns suggested something beyond simple defense. It was conducting a real-time study of Confederation warfare techniques, learning and adapting with each passing moment. "They're not fighting," Renla muttered. "They're analyzing." The battle transformed from a standard pacification protocol into something entirely unexpected, where Confederation ships followed precise, mathematically calculated attack patterns. The human vessel moved with an almost organic unpredictability. Energy conduits that should have been vulnerable remained protected by shield configurations that seemed to predict threats before they manifested. Weapon systems that had conquered countless civilizations found themselves redirected, their energy dissipated before they could cause meaningful damage. "Tactical anomaly," the ship's central intelligence announced. The words were a massive understatement. Admiral Zoran Kax realized they were no longer dealing with a simple first contact scenario. This was something else entirely, a demonstration of technological adaptation that challenged everything the Confederation understood about warfare, intelligence, and technological development. The human ship continued its impossible defense, each moment revealing layers of complexity that seemed to emerge from nowhere. It wasn't just surviving. It was transforming the very nature of the conflict. "Stand down," the human transmission came again. Not as a request, but as a statement of inevitable outcome. For the first time in generations, the Galactic Confederation found itself facing an opponent it did not understand. The battle was becoming something more than a military engagement. It was becoming a profound lesson in the nature of intelligence itself. The research vessel Quantum Insight drifted at the edge of the engagement zone, its array of scientific instruments working overtime to comprehend the impossible scenario unfolding before them. Dr. Ilya Rentok, the Confederation's leading xenotechnology expert, watched the holographic displays with an intensity that bordered on obsession. "This isn't just defensive adaptation," she muttered to her assistant. "It's a complete reimagining of technological interaction." The human ship moved through the battlefield like a living algorithm, where Confederation vessels followed strict combat protocols, predictable attack patterns mapped out by centuries of strategic refinement. This single ship danced between destruction and innovation with breathtaking fluidity. Energy weapons would target a specific section of the ship's hull, only to find the defensive capabilities had already shifted. Shield harmonics transformed in microseconds, turning potentially fatal strikes into mere glancing interactions. It was as if the ship was reading the Confederation's tactical intentions before they could be fully executed. Commander Zara Vexnak, observing from the observation platform, felt something she hadn't experienced in her entire military career: genuine uncertainty. The ship's computational systems seemed to operate on a principle entirely foreign to Confederation understanding. Traditional AI followed predetermined decision trees, with carefully mapped response protocols. This human vessel appeared to be creating new decision pathways in real time, learning and evolving with each passing moment. Analyze the energy redistribution patterns, Dr. Rentok instructed her team. The holographic displays began to map out the human ship's defensive responses, revealing a network of adaptive intelligence that defied conventional technological principles. Each Confederation attack became a complex mathematical problem for the human vessel to solve, and it was solving them faster than any known computational system could process. "Look at the computational flow," one of the junior researchers gasped. The ship's defensive mechanisms weren't just blocking attacks. They were studying them, understanding them, and developing counter-strategies instantaneously. The tactical symphony continued to unfold. The human ship didn't just defend. It transformed the very nature of the engagement. Where Confederation vessels would typically maintain fixed positions and execute predetermined maneuvers, this ship moved with an almost intuitive grace. It would position itself in seemingly vulnerable locations, only to reveal that what appeared to be a weakness was actually an elaborate trap. Energy would be redirected, shield configurations would morph, and entire attack formations would find themselves neutralized without understanding how. Dr. Rentok's instruments captured something unprecedented. The ship's computational systems weren't just responding to threats. They were learning from them. Each Confederation attack became a piece of data, integrated into an ever-evolving defensive strategy. "It's not a ship," she whispered, her scientific mind racing to comprehend what she was witnessing. "It's a living computational system." The battle transformed from a military engagement into something closer to an intricate dance. The human vessel demonstrated an understanding of conflict that went beyond traditional technological principles. It wasn't fighting to destroy. It was fighting to understand, to adapt, to evolve. Commander Vexnak realized they were confronting something more than a technological threat. This was a fundamental reimagining of intelligence itself. The Confederation's most advanced tactical systems began to show signs of stress. Predictive algorithms that had been reliable for generations started to break down, unable to process the human ship's dynamic response mechanisms. As the engagement continued, one thing became abundantly clear. The rules of warfare had just been completely rewritten. "We are dealing with something entirely new," Dr. Rentok announced to her stunned research team. "This isn't just a ship. This is a glimpse into an entirely different approach to intelligence and technological interaction." The tactical symphony continued, a complex melody of adaptation, innovation, and profound technological potential. The Confederation's central research facility existed beyond the boundaries of conventional scientific understanding. Massive quantum processors hummed with an energy that seemed almost alive, processing millennia of technological knowledge. Today, those same processors were struggling to comprehend something entirely unprecedented. Dr. Aria Lintok stood before a wall of holographic displays, her specialized xenotechnology sensors working overtime. The data streaming in from the human ship's encounter with Confederation forces defied every established principle of technological development. "This isn't just adaptation," she muttered to her primary research assistant. "This is a complete reimagining of technological interaction." The research team had been analyzing the human ship's computational systems for what seemed like endless cycles. Each layer of analysis revealed something more extraordinary than the last. Traditional Confederation technology followed strict, predictable evolutionary paths. Computer systems were designed with carefully mapped decision trees, with redundancies and fail-safes that prevented spontaneous innovation. The human ship did none of that. Its computational systems appeared to be a living, breathing network of adaptive intelligence, where Confederation technology saw challenges as problems to be solved within existing parameters. This system treated each challenge as an opportunity for fundamental reimagining. Energy distribution networks that should have collapsed under stress instead restructured themselves in milliseconds. Computational pathways that would typically require months of careful engineering seemed to emerge spontaneously, solving complex problems before they could fully manifest. "Look at the computational flow," Dr. Lintock's assistant gasped, highlighting a particularly complex data stream. The ship's systems weren't just processing information. They were creating new informational pathways in real time. What the Confederation considered a primitive vessel was actually a highly sophisticated system of unprecedented complexity. It wasn't just a ship. It was a living technological organism. The research facility's most advanced quantum processors began to show signs of strain. Analytical algorithms that had been reliable for generations started to break down, unable to fully process the human ship's dynamic capabilities. Each piece of data told a more extraordinary story. The ship's hull wasn't a static structure, but a dynamic system that could redistribute energy, adapt to environmental challenges, and restructure itself on a molecular level. Computational systems that should have been limited by traditional processing capabilities seemed to operate on principles that bordered on the miraculous. Dr. Lintock realized they were witnessing something more than a technological breakthrough. This was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be. "It's not just adapting," she explained to the assembled research team. "It's evolving in real time. Each challenge becomes an opportunity for fundamental transformation." The implications were staggering. Confederation technology had always followed a linear path of development, carefully mapped, meticulously engineered. The human ship suggested an entirely different approach. An approach where technology was less about control and more about dynamic interaction. Computational systems that could create new decision pathways instantaneously. Energy distribution networks that could restructure themselves faster than traditional systems could even recognize a problem. A technological approach that treated challenges as opportunities for fundamental reimagining. "We're not just looking at a ship," Dr. Lintock whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound uncertainty. "We're looking at an entirely new approach to intelligence itself." The research facility continued its analysis, each moment revealing layers of complexity that challenged everything the Confederation understood about technological development. The human ship was more than a technological marvel. It was a glimpse into a fundamentally different understanding of what intelligence could be. As the quantum processors continued their endless calculations, one thing became abundantly clear. The rules of technological development had just been completely rewritten. The communication chamber of the Galactic Confederation's primary diplomatic station fell silent as the human transmission began to unfold. Ambassador Kreltok felt something he had never experienced in his centuries of diplomatic service: genuine uncertainty. The human communication was unlike anything in the Confederation's extensive first contact archives. It wasn't just a message, it was a comprehensive data package that seemed to dissect the very foundations of Confederation communication protocols. "We've been studying you," the transmission began, "far longer than you've been studying us." Each word carried a weight that went beyond simple linguistic communication. The transmission seemed to adapt in real time, finding linguistic pathways that bypassed traditional translation algorithms. It wasn't just communicating information, it was demonstrating an impossible understanding of Confederation communication systems. Senior linguistic analyst Renla watched in growing fascination as the translation interfaces began to reshape themselves. The human communication was alive, dynamic, constantly evolving. Where Confederation messages followed strict diplomatic protocols, this transmission moved like a living intelligence. "Your communication networks," the human transmission continued, "are remarkably predictable." It was a statement that cut deeper than any physical attack could. The Confederation prided itself on the complexity of its interstellar communication systems, networks that had managed diplomatic relations across thousands of light years for millennia. The humans were suggesting those networks were fundamentally flawed. Ambassador Kreltak's diplomatic training fought against the rising sense of unease. Decades of carefully cultivated negotiation skills seemed to crumble in the face of this unprecedented communication approach. The transmission began to reveal layers of knowledge that should have been impossible. Detailed information about Confederation diplomatic histories, communication protocols, and strategic vulnerabilities emerged with each passing moment. It wasn't just a message, it was a comprehensive demonstration of understanding. "We know your fear," the transmission stated, not as a threat, but as a simple observation. Renla watched as the linguistic analysis systems began to break down. The human communication wasn't just transmitting information, it was actively reshaping the Confederation's communication interfaces. Quantum encryption filters that had been impenetrable for generations found themselves being systematically decoded. "Your hierarchical structures are a limitation." The transmission continued. "Cooperation is not about control, but about dynamic interaction." Each word was a surgical strike against Confederation diplomatic principles. The humans weren't just communicating, they were demonstrating a fundamental understanding of the Confederation's psychological and communication vulnerabilities. Ambassador Kreltak realized they were facing something entirely unprecedented. This wasn't a traditional first contact scenario. This was a comprehensive demonstration of a fundamentally different approach to intelligence and interaction. The transmission continued to unfold, each moment revealing layers of complexity that challenged everything the Confederation understood about communication, diplomacy, and interstellar relations. "We are offering a choice," the final part of the transmission declared. "Evolve or be left behind." The communication chamber remained silent. The Confederation's most advanced diplomatic experts found themselves unable to formulate a response. The humans had just rewritten the rules of first contact. Renla looked at Ambassador Kreltak, her multifaceted eyes reflecting a mixture of scientific excitement and profound uncertainty. "They're not asking for permission," she whispered. "They're presenting us with a fundamental choice about our future." The transmission ended, but its impact would reshape the Confederation forever. The Confederation's legendary battle fleet had never known defeat. Millennia of technological supremacy had transformed them into a force considered insurmountable by every known civilization. Their ships were living monuments to strategic perfection, each vessel a carefully engineered masterpiece of defensive and offensive capabilities. Now, they were falling apart. Fleet Admiral Zoran Kax watched in absolute disbelief as his most advanced battle groups found themselves systematically dismantled. It wasn't through overwhelming firepower or superior weaponry. The human ship was defeating them through something far more profound, a level of strategic thinking that defied conventional understanding. Each Confederation battle group approached the engagement with millennia of refined tactical knowledge. Their attack patterns were mathematical symphonies of precision, strategies that had conquered countless civilizations. Predictive algorithms calculated potential outcomes with microscopic precision. The human ship rendered all of that meaningless. Where Confederation vessels followed rigid combat protocols, the human ship moved with an almost living intelligence. It didn't just defend, it anticipated. Attack vectors that should have been impossible to predict were neutralized before they could fully manifest. "It's learning," Lieutenant Commander Jax observed, her voice a mixture of scientific fascination and growing concern. Each Confederation strategy becomes part of its understanding. The battle transformed from a military engagement into something closer to a complex intellectual challenge. Entire battle groups found themselves outmaneuvered not by superior firepower, but by a fundamental reimagining of tactical interaction. Energy weapons that should have obliterated entire sections of space found themselves redirected, their destructive potential transformed into something constructive. Shield harmonics that had been impenetrable for generations became flexible, adaptive systems that responded to threats before they could fully develop. Admiral Zoran Kax realized they were confronting something beyond a technological threat. This was a fundamental challenge to everything the Confederation understood about intelligence, strategy, and potential. The human ship didn't fight like a traditional military vessel. It fought like a living intelligence, treating each confrontation as an opportunity for understanding and growth. Where Confederation tactics saw conflict as a problem to be solved through overwhelming force, the human approach was fundamentally different. Communication channels between Confederation ships began to break down. Tactical coordination systems that had been reliable for generations started to show signs of profound stress. The human ship was doing more than defeating them. It was revealing the fundamental limitations of their technological approach. "We are demonstrating," came another transmission from the human vessel, "the difference between technological superiority and true intelligence." Each moment of the engagement revealed layers of complexity that challenged Confederation understanding. The ship wasn't just defending. It was conducting a comprehensive analysis of Confederation military capabilities, revealing systemic vulnerabilities that had remained hidden for millennia. Tactical systems that had been considered invulnerable found themselves systematically decoded. Defensive protocols that had protected Confederation vessels for generations were being rewritten in real time. Lieutenant Commander Jax watched the holographic displays with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound uncertainty. "They're not just fighting," she muttered. "They're teaching." The Confederation's most advanced battle groups, vessels that had been the absolute pinnacle of military engineering, found themselves transformed from instruments of conquest to subjects of a profound technological lesson. As the engagement continued, one thing became abundantly clear. The rules of warfare, of technological interaction, of understanding intelligence itself, had just been completely rewritten. The human ship continued its impossible dance, each moment a demonstration of a fundamentally different approach to conflict, to intelligence, to potential. "We offer a choice," the final transmission declared. "Evolve or be left behind." The Confederation's legendary battle fleet had met something it could not comprehend. And in that incomprehension lay a profound transformation. The central chamber of the Galactic Confederation fell silent as the transmission from the human vessel began. Holographic displays flickered with a strange, almost living quality, capturing the attention of every representative from across the known universe. Commander Zara Vexnak stood at the center of the chamber, her iridescent skin shifting between shades of deep blue and pale silver, a biological tell of the profound tension that filled the room. The engagement that had begun as a simple first contact had transformed into something far more significant. "We are not here to conquer." The human transmission began, its clarity cutting through millennia of established diplomatic protocols. "We are here to offer a fundamental choice about the nature of intelligence, cooperation, and potential." The Confederation's most senior representatives found themselves unable to respond. The human ship had done more than defeat their most advanced battle groups. It had systematically revealed the fundamental limitations of their technological and philosophical approach to interstellar relations. Ambassador Krultok, whose diplomatic career had spanned centuries, felt something he had never experienced before: genuine humility. The humans had not just challenged the Confederation's technological superiority, they had demonstrated a profound understanding of intelligence that went beyond any established paradigm. The transmission continued, each word carefully constructed to reveal layers of complexity that challenged everything the Confederation understood about technological and cultural development. "Your hierarchical structures are a limitation," the message explained. "Cooperation is not about control, but about dynamic interaction. We are offering you an opportunity to reimagine your approach to intelligence, to technology, to understanding itself." Holographic displays began to shift, revealing comprehensive data packages that demonstrated the humans' understanding of Confederation systems. It wasn't a threat. It was a comprehensive lesson in potential. Dr. Aria Lintok, the Confederation's leading xenotechnology expert, watched in fascination. The data revealed a fundamentally different approach to technological development. Where Confederation technology followed linear, carefully controlled paths, the human approach was dynamic, adaptive, constantly evolving. We have been observing your civilization for longer than you realize. The transmission continued, not as a potential threat, but as a potential partner in a broader understanding of intelligence. The chamber remained silent. The Confederation's representatives found themselves confronting a profound choice. This was more than a first contact scenario. This was an invitation to fundamentally reimagine their understanding of technological and cultural potential. Lieutenant Commander Jax noticed something extraordinary happening to the communication systems. The transmission wasn't just sending information, it was actively reshaping the Confederation's communication interfaces, creating new pathways of understanding that had never existed before. "We are offering a choice," the final part of the transmission declared. "Evolve or be left behind." Ambassador Kreltok looked around the chamber. Centuries of diplomatic training, millennia of technological superiority, all seemed to crumble in the face of this unprecedented encounter. The human ship had done more than defeat the Confederation's most advanced battle groups. It had revealed a fundamental truth about the nature of intelligence, of potential, of understanding itself. Dr. Lintok turned to her colleagues, her multifaceted eyes reflecting a mixture of scientific excitement and profound uncertainty. "They're not asking for permission," she whispered. "They're presenting us with a fundamental choice about our future." The transmission ended, but its impact would reshape the Confederation forever. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again.